again to the Talking Guitar podcast, brought to you by the North American Guitar in Nashville, Tennessee. Lindsay Straw here, today featuring my recent chat with Canadian builder Zach Lefebvre of TreeHouse Guitars. Though he may not yet work out of an actual treehouse, the ecologically minded guitar maker does build in his small, self-made and off-the-grid cabin in the woods of Ontario. We chat about how his family's deep musical and instrument-making roots set him on the path to performing and then later building himself, eventually studying under Sergei de Jonge. We talk about striking the balance between building for working musicians versus building for the high-end market, the importance of soundboards and choosing sustainable resources, and I pretend like I totally understand exactly what he's talking about when he dives into the math and science of guitar making. Zach is a multi-talented guy, and in addition to working in the shop, he still gets himself on stage and in the studio with his duo, Wildwood Soul, as well as with his family band, the O'Shraves. Be sure to check out links to his music in the show notes. And now, enjoy my chat with Zach of TreeHouse Guitars. Well, thank you so much for joining me for the podcast today. Super exciting to finally talk to you and learn more about your background.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on and excited to be represented by TNAG, of course. I'm very happy about that. So.
Oh, yeah, we love having your guitars in the shop, and they've done so well for us. And it's like, I can't believe that we haven't done this sooner, because I feel like maybe it's because you kind of joined the roster around the same time that I started at TNAG. So I feel like you've been a part of TNAG the whole time that I have. And I'm like, how have we not had a more in-depth chat yet?
Yeah, cool.
So yeah,
here we are.
Yeah, here we are finally. So but yeah, so I mean, I guess the first question that I always ask people, and I especially want to know with you, because I don't think I know as much about your background as I do about some of the other luthiers. So I'm just so curious to hear about how you got into woodworking and how you got into guitar making specifically, and yeah, what was your formal education or your path into it?
Okay, yeah, I'll start with, I guess, my childhood, because it all led up to that. I grew up in a really musical family. My family around here is known for their music. They actually have a nonprofit organization that runs a week-long music camp every year, and a lot of music stuff in this community for my family. And my mom always says I slept under a lot of pianos when I was young, because she was a touring musician, and so I was immersed in music ever since I can remember. Mm-hmm. And the creative process has always been encouraged and I guess really important to me, more than money, I guess, in a way, because I never went to school for a job to make money, to have like a good lifestyle and retire and blah blah blah. Anyways, so I played in my family band. I still do. We still play music together. And leading up to, I guess, in high school was sort of the first indication that I was interested in trying to build a guitar. Mm-hmm. And in art class, I wanted to build an electric guitar, because I thought, oh, that'd be pretty cool. You could get sculptural with an electric guitar. And it was too big of a project, so I wasn't allowed to do it. So in woodworking class, I thought, okay, this is the time to do it, right? No, too big of a project. So I was, I guess, told that I couldn't do it. So that got kind of set aside, and I went to university for 1 year for music, and mm-hmm. I ended up dropping out because it was sort of, I guess, ruining music for me. It was turning it into more of a chore than a creative outlet. So I dropped out of university, and I had to make a choice between two things. I wanted to do two things really badly, and one of them was try to make guitars, and the other one was go take a course to make tree houses. Mm-hmm. So like life-sized tree houses that people live in. Actually, the guy that I was thinking about taking the course with, he has a show on TV now, Peter Nelson, really well-known treehouse builder, I guess. So that's where the TreeHouse guitars name came. And I thought maybe someday I'll have a workshop in a tree, which would be
Ooh,
pretty cool.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's still in the back of my mind right now. But yeah, that's sort of where the name came from. But from there, of course, I decided to make guitars, not treehouses. So I actually reached out to Grit Laskin. He was like the only guitar maker I knew of at the time. And I was more into aesthetic, I guess the aesthetic side of guitar making at that time. So I had some acquaintances that, or some connections to Grit Laskin, not directly, but through other people. And he basically said he doesn't take apprentices, but check out this course that Sergei de Jonge teaches. So I went and took the course, absolutely loved it, and started my business right after taking the course. The course was a month long, and I built two guitars, cutaway guitars, which was, thinking back, was nuts. But it was really, I guess, intense. I think my shortest day was about 12 hours in the shop. So I was spending a lot of after hours in there too. And it was, I guess, also not only just a learning experience for making guitars, but a huge life experience, because the way that Sergei approaches guitar making, I think it's, I don't know, it's so beautiful. It's he takes the guitars in the direction that he wants. He tries a lot of different things, experiments a lot, which I've taken from that experience with him, and I experiment a lot, and I think it helps us learn more about how the guitar works, what you're doing, and what the effects of what you're doing are. And also just his lifestyle of his lifestyle of, I mean, he maybe spent a little bit too much time in the workshop, but the lifestyle of him, just picture an older gentleman in his slippers in the workshop, sometimes wearing a couple pairs of glasses stacked on each other. And yeah, he just loves his job, and sharing his knowledge. So being in that environment really felt amazing and was inspiring. So anyways, that was where I learned guitar making initially. I went home after that. For 2 years, I built my first, I forget how many guitars, 3 guitars, maybe 3 or 4. And then I had a lot of questions. I went back to him as an apprentice for 2 months. And then again, 2 years at home, and then went back again for 2 months. So on 3 separate occasions, I went back to Sergei and spent time with him. Helped a little bit with the courses that he teaches. So and teaching, I really like teaching too. So yeah. And then the rest was sort of learning from my experience, and the wealth of knowledge that's out there in guitar making land.
Yeah.
Everybody else's willingness to share, and yeah. I like to think that I'm a bit of a sponge with that kind of stuff. The rest is like, I'm terrible with names, but guitars, I guess I'm a bit nerdy about guitars. So that's a lot nerdy. I don't know. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Sergei just seems to, I didn't realize how much of a huge presence he was until just recently talking to Dion, and gosh, who else did I just talk to where he came up to? But like, yeah, he's such a massive presence up there. And so that's so cool. I didn't realize that he taught a course, like a formalized course like that. So that makes a lot of sense that that's part of why he has that influence and that impact on other builders. So
Yeah.
how far away from Toronto are you? Are you pretty close to Grit there?
No,
Okay.
I'm about 7.5 hours
Mm.
drive. So I'm actually far from everything here. Just about as far as you can get from anything. Ottawa is about 9 hours from here,
Mhm.
and that's where near where Sergei lives.
Okay, cool.
But the closest guitar maker that I know of is Matt Maranger on Manitoulin Island, and
Oh, okay.
actually he builds some really nice electrics and arch top
Oh,
stuff.
cool. I haven't seen his work yet. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so how I want to go back to your family's music because that's so cool that you got to grow up with that. Was it like more of a traditional music sort of background or just kind of
Yeah,
more general? Yeah, okay. That's
yeah. It was like
the case.
Celtic, Irish, trad music,
Awesome.
French Canadian kind of music. A
Yeah.
lot of toe tapping. Actually, the fiddle is a huge part of my family. The guitar is not so much, but
Mhm.
the violin and fiddle. I have triplet uncles who are well known in
Oh,
the world
wow.
of trad music. They play violin and they've won the grandmaster fiddle competitions many times.
Oh, wow.
um,
That's crazy.
actually have another uncle who's a world renowned violin maker,
Mm.
which is I don't know. It's interesting because I haven't really had a whole lot of interaction with him. Maybe because the violins have never really been super interesting to me. They're always kind of the same, you know. Um, Whereas the guitar making you can be a lot more creative with them.
Yeah.
But the family, yeah, the family music, it's actually every second year we have Christmases together, and it's like this big bash, musical bash, and a lot
Oh,
of music playing and singing and stuff like that. And
that's
yeah.
so cool. So
Mhm.
is that how you had that connection to Grit because of his involvement in the traditional music scene too?
Yeah.
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 Oh, that's so cool. I'm so jealous. That's awesome. Man, okay. So yeah, just to kind of pivot back into guitars, do you feel like your musical taste drives your the types of guitars that you want to build in any way, or are you kind of open to whatever folks kind of request?
I'm yeah, definitely. I also love playing like singer-songwriter style music. So like Milk Carton Kids or like Gillian Welch and uh, Gregory Allen. I love so many different kinds of music, but
Yeah.
those ones I like to play that kind of music. And so I think my guitars, I definitely focus on dynamics a lot. I want a lot of headroom in my guitars, which is I'm not really sure why, but I think in my playing experience, when I play with uh, like when I'm playing backup for a traditional group or whatever, I I don't want the guitar to hold me back as far
Mhm.
as dynamics go.
Yeah.
So if I really strum hard, I want it to deliver.
Yeah.
So at the same time, I really love the Samoji sound. So it's like I'm trying to get those two together. And that's what I'm striving for.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, dynamic range is huge for me. Um, and then I don't know, the rest is kind of like whatever I feel sounds nice. Like overtones and color, I guess, colorful sound. I don't know. It's so hard to describe sound.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like
Like this.
it's such an uphill battle, and then you talk to some person, and they're like, "That's not how it sounds to me," and I'm like, "Yeah, words
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
really apply."
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
But that really makes sense that like, yeah, your experience, because I mean, yeah, guitar is always one of the quietest instruments in a session or a jam setting. And so whether you're a singer-songwriter and you're playing with a band or you're backing a Celtic fiddler or, even a larger group, yeah, like that volume aspect is so important. And so it makes a lot of sense that that's something that you build into your guitars. And you definitely can see that with your guitars. Like even
Thanks.
your parlors have so much power, which is crazy.
Awesome. Yeah, and I guess power can be explained in a few different ways, but I like the I like the notes to be thick and full,
Yeah.
even when you're playing them hard. You know how like if you really push a guitar and it can't handle it, it can get kind of shrill and thin.
Right.
But I want that like full punchy sound, punch you right in the gut, even when you're like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you definitely achieve that for sure.
Thanks.
Um, so you have such a like I feel like more than most other luthiers I think that I've encountered, you use like the satin finishes and the osmo oil, which has such a sort of like a naturalistic approach. And I'm curious, how did you come upon deciding to use that as much as you do? Because yeah, I don't feel like it's super common, but I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I'm still experimenting with finishes. For the first 25 guitars, I was doing French polish,
Hmm.
and I feel like I got pretty good at it. But it's so fragile,
Yeah.
and I just moved away from it for that reason. And I noticed it was leading up to that 25th guitar, I was thinking French polish is, the best sounding finish because it's thin and that's just everybody knows it's the best sounding finish.
Yeah.
And uh, and then I sent two guitars off to get finished by Vancouver Guitar Finishing. They sprayed a really nice finish that was still very thin, and my guitars sounded just as good, if not better. So I don't know, like there was a shift in my thinking there, I guess. But it made me, I guess, explore the other options a bit more.
Hmm.
And the nice thing about Osmo oil is that it's good for the environment. It's not stinky. It's not toxic.
Oh, that's
Uh,
great.
yeah, and it's actually really easy to apply and touch up and stuff. I think it's more durable than French polish.
Okay. Interesting.
Maybe for the sole reason that it's not glossy.
Yeah.
Um, you know how like if you put a little dent in a glossy finish, it's like it's
Yeah.
there, it's right there. But in a satin finish, it kind of hides it, maybe, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's
I don't know.
a good assumption.
Yeah, and then I also like to think of any finish as like mass that's added to the instrument. So whether it's absorbed in the wood or it's on top, the guitar still has to vibrate all that mass. Or yeah, and with an oil finish, the Osmo oil, it takes very little Osmo oil to finish a guitar. So you're adding very little mass, which is, I think, amazing for tone.
Hmm.
And I'm still, I still struggle with the idea of putting it on like a really high end guitar,
Hmm.
one of my like fancier guitars, because I don't know that it would really accepted. But like on the Ember series guitars, I love it. It's perfect.
Hmm.
Um, it goes really well with the sunburst finish. Also the satin finishes, they really highlight the wood. They don't have all the reflections happening. And I'm actually a satin finish guy, even if it's a sprayed finish. I like satin finishes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually did a couple parlors recently with satin finish tops and glossy back and sides,
Hmm.
and and I really liked that look. The satin top, glossy back and sides. The oiled necks, I love oiled necks. The
Yeah.
feel of oiled necks is just, I haven't found anything that feels better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I love that about your guitars and Dion's guitars. Like it's just like that's what all the necks should be.
That's, yeah.
Is there what's the is there like a pragmatic reason for going gloss on the back and sides and satin on the top?
Um, no, I guess I just wanted to try it. I also, I guess, I don't like my guitars to look too blingy
Hmm.
on the front, but sometimes I'll make more decorative features on the back and sides, just
Hmm.
because I think it's more for the player than the audience, I guess. I don't know. And those two guitars particularly had really dark and sort of fancy looking woods on the back and side. So
Okay.
I think dark woods with a glossy finish can be pretty, it really highlights the finish, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, no reason other than I kind of wanted to try it.
Yeah, it's aesthetic.
Well,
Cool.
actually, there is a plus side is the satin finishes can be applied thinner.
Oh
So
yeah, so then
if it,
that soundboard vibrates more. Yeah,
exactly, yeah.
gotcha. Cool. So yeah, with your aesthetic choices, have you had a pretty consistent, I mean, at least in the guitars that we've seen from you, they've all had a very cohesive look to them, but how did you come to your particular style with that sort of like bluish, it is like patinated copper, right? Or is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, how did you come into
It was a lot of trying things.
that?
First, I would say my first probably 28, 29 guitars were a lot of I guess flexing my muscles as far as like aesthetic options go.
Mhm.
But after that, I kind of I built one guitar that was sort of similar to what I do now, and I
Mhm.
really liked it. So I kind of developed that style, and then I liked it so much that I wanted it to be my regular style, and it was in a point in my career when I decided that I really need like an identity, I guess, as far
Mhm.
as like I want my guitars to be recognizable. So I think that broken rosette with the copper in it is sort of a standard feature now. And then
Mhm.
the copper in the bass, I think that's really sexy.
Yeah, the guitar
But
buds.
it's not, yeah, the guitar butts with Instagram. I tried to coin that. Yeah, and things like that where it's not like, nobody's gonna see it
Mhm.
except maybe the player who looks at it every once in a while.
Yeah.
But those kinds of things I really like because it's kind of an understated detail, I guess.
Yeah. You have a pretty strong focus on using like salvage materials and local woods. Is that, I mean, it seems like you kind of have a conscientious choice towards making those more environmental choices. And are you going to kind of try to avoid using things like Brazilian rosewood and the tropical hardwoods that are hard to come by and in favor of those more sustainable resources?
Yeah, definitely. I made the conscious choice to not use Brazilian rosewood from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
I live off grid in a little cabin pretty much. So in any part of my life, I'm really conscious about my environmental impact.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many woods around me that are great for guitars. So
Mm-hmm.
why not use them? And I've built guitars with many different species back and sides. And the top is obviously way more important to the sound than the back and sides. And I haven't built a guitar with one type of wood that I didn't like for the back and sides.
Mm-hmm.
They just all have their own little flavor, I guess. Um, but maple is so prevalent around here. There's a lot of hard maple and some soft maple. So I do use that quite a bit in my
Mm-hmm.
builds. Um, the Ember series, I've been using a lot, almost entirely local woods for that. And it really feels nice,
Mm-hmm.
especially when I'm not a huge fan of the light colored woods, which is the downside of like
Yeah.
all the local woods are light colored for here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the Embers series, when you put a stain on it, it totally changes it. I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
really like the sunburst looks, the hand rub sunbursts. Um, but it's hard to find top wood from around here. Thankfully, it's easy to get top wood that's that's salvaged from elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'd say I'm very conscientious about what I use. What that being said, I'm still using Honduras rosewood. I'm still using tropical hardwoods,
Mm-hmm.
but I do. It's a very important part of my business, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's great, I think, to really make that call early on and set that precedent for yourself so that you attract the kinds of players who are open to that right away.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
What's your personal favorite? I guess maybe what's your favorite kind of more traditional tone wood?
Oh, traditional. Is redwood traditional? Okay,
Good
that's fine.
question.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
well,
how long has redwood really been used in guitars? Now that I
yeah,
think about it.
maybe not that long. I don't know. There the spruces, I think, mainly in terms of density, and I just like a sort of a less dense spruce.
Mm-hmm.
Like moon spruce tends to be less dense. So it sort of naturally fits with what I like. But I've built guitars with Sitka spruce, which have sounded amazing too.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking about traditional woods, top woods, back and sides, I really don't think it matters as much as people say it does. I built a guitar with rich light back and sides.
Really?
Yeah, and it sounds so good. I actually took the guitar on tour. I decided to take it with me, and I
Oh, that's
played the
awesome.
tour, and it sounds amazing, but it's just rich light back and sides,
Yeah.
which goes to show you that. Pardon?
What is that substance? I know it's like a man-made substance, right?
Yeah, it's what they call vulcanized paper. They use it for fretboards. I think
Mhm.
Gibson uses it quite a bit for fretboards. It's nasty to work with. It's like yeah, it's pretty nasty to work with. Bending sides was really difficult, but it was I guess a huge experiment, but it taught me a lot about the contribution of back and sides, or like woods in general.
Mhm.
Obviously the top is super important.
Yeah.
And I love redwood. Redwood's my favorite for
Yeah.
tops.
Yeah. I've come around on redwood a lot this year where we feel like we've had just a ton of great guitars with redwood tops. And I'm like, now I
Yeah.
need another guitar. No. Um, yeah, I guess, yeah, that's such an interesting sort of observation that, yeah, the back and side woods aren't necessarily as important because it's like they're almost the back and side woods are kind of the more easy topic to talk about and to make like, oh, like our tone wood review videos where it's like, yeah, because there's so many different options and people really want to talk about those. But at the end of the day, it's just like between talking to all of you luthiers and finding out sort of like what really matters to you guys and finding out how much control you really have over the sound, it really does just seem to come down more to the tops and to the luthiers. And for the back and side woods, like there's really no reason to be pillaging like tiny resources that are so valuable and so overtaken from already that like, yeah, just find a better resource for it and the
Yeah,
guitars
yeah.
are great.
Yeah, and there are so many there's so many woods that sound similar. So like Brazilian rosewood, there's like I'm building with Honduras rosewood right now, which I actually bought salvaged pretty much. That was a whole other story, but I have a lot of it now. But it sounds, I would say, very similar to Brazilian rosewood. And Wenge, like that sounds really similar to Brazilian rosewood.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can almost tell just by running my hand on it. I don't know if anybody's talked to you about that before, but like if I run my fingers along the board, it's got kind of like a really ringy, like I don't really tap things unless I'm looking for cracks. But I find like running my fingers along the slice actually tells me more about, and like woods like Wenge and Honduras rosewood sound identical to Brazilian rosewood when you do that.
Wow.
So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of options out there. Brazilian rosewood's not the only one. The best one.
Yeah.
And best, what is best? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's subjective, and
Yeah.
there's so many reasons why something becomes the favored thing, and it might not necessarily be due to like empirical evidence that it is the best. It's just like lore and timing. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Brazilian rosewood is beautiful. It's
Yeah.
gorgeous. Aesthetically. I mean, I'm sure that's partly why it was used in the beginning and why it keeps getting used. I don't know.
Yeah, it's good to explore the other options. What's the most unusual tone wood you've used so far?
Well, rich light.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
I guess if you want to call it tone wood, I don't know. Otherwise, I don't know. I guess I've used fairly standard woods. I used mango wood for back and sides. That was really interesting. That was one of my it was my first commission, and it was from my dad. He said, treat me as a customer. I'm your first customer, and build me a guitar. So I went through the build process with him, and it was a way of him supporting me and getting a guitar out of it.
Yeah.
But it had mango, which was really interesting to work with, actually. And just totally different.
What would be sort of the best comparison, tonally speaking, that you could think of?
Tonally, I don't, it's so hard to say because that's one of my very first guitars. Like I've come such a long ways since then. So I don't know if I could even compare it, but as far as like density and that the physical properties go, it was very lightweight, almost like spalted maple, maybe.
Okay, cool.
I don't know, like super lightweight, and when you go to bend the sides, it was like butter. Yeah, I don't know, really lightweight.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a bit more about your models. You do sort of like a pretty typical or familiar OM. You have your parlor. I think those are, other than the Embers, those are the only ones that we've had in the shop. Do you do like double O's at all, or anything bigger than an OM?
Yeah, I have the quad O.
Oh, that's right. We had one of your quad O's.
Yeah, and I don't know what to call it. I've called that model so many different things. I don't know what to call it. I call it right now. I'm calling it the big one. I don't know. I do have, there's the parlor, which is it's actually loosely based off of a Martin 018, sort of that body shape, anyways. Which I found aesthetically pleasing, and it was one of my mom's favorite guitars. My grandpa has an old like 1940s Martin 018, so a great guitar, and I kind of stuck with that's been my most popular model by far. I built more parlors than all the other models put together.
Oh wow.
So I'm getting better with my parlors for sure. But yeah, the OM was my own take on an OM sized guitar that would fit in a standard OM case without having to buy a custom case. Yeah, and as far as body shape goes and curves and stuff, I played around with a lot of curves, and really struggled with the waist. I don't know. I one of the hardest parts of a guitar's shape for me is going from the waist to the lower bout, and I guess I like the tight waists, and then the smooth transitions between curves. I hate the look of a dreadnought. The sound's great, but the dreadnought look is not my favorite. And then the Ember is actually my parlor shape, but with F holes, so similar. And then the big one is it's actually very similar to my OM, but like scaled up pretty much.
Right. So then, so do you foresee yourself trying to make anything bigger than that? Or are you like, no, that's good. That's a good enough size.
I I've thought about maybe making a modified dreadnought kind of thing, just because it'd be cool to try to get that dreadnought sound, or like see what I can get out of a guitar that size. But so far I think I'm just going to stick with those. I used to have a bunch of different models. I have like 10 molds above my workshop there for like Taylor and Martin shapes and stuff, and I don't really have any interest in building those. They're more for like if I'm teaching a course or something and somebody wants to build a specific style, then they can use those molds. But yeah, I think those models, I'm going to stick with those, and that's sort of my brand, and my sound too, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like, all you really need is like a parlor and an OM and maybe a double O, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Personal bias.
Yeah.
With the Embers, do you ever foresee yourself going into arch tops, or was your goal to sort of make like a flat top arch top, kind of get that sort of experience out of a flat top guitar? Was that sort of how that came about?
Yeah, that was actually shortly after I got an old arch top. It was in pieces. I got it from a friend, and he gave it to me, and I put it back together and fixed it all up, and kind of fell in love with that arch top sound. But I guess a lot of it was experimental building, and Eric, who I share my shop with, I actually rent the shop from him. He was building his first guitar, and I asked him if he would be game to try this with me. So his first guitar is actually very similar. So we built those side by side, and the idea was to get an arch top sound, but with more bass and volume, I guess. Which I don't know. It's a small body, so it actually sounds more resonators, like kind of like a resonator guitar, which is, I think, really cool.
Yeah.
It's not exactly what I was expecting when I was building the first one, but it's actually the guitar I reach for at home now.
Yeah.
I like playing on it. It's great for like open tunings and bluesy stuff, and that kind of But it's actually there was a lot of actually not a ton of measurements and experimentation on the first Ember, and now that one sits on my wall because the top is a little bit dipped down. So I went overboard on measuring everything than the next ones. And the nice thing about the Ember series guitars is all the pressure is pushing down on the top. So simulating the bridge forces is really easy. So I was able to actually brace it in a way that I thought made sense, and put mass or weight on the top, which is like the calculation of using the string breaking over the bridge, and the string tension. You can actually calculate how much force is pushing down on the top. So I was able to use that amount of force and then measure from the underside the deflection in different parts of the top. So I basically carved braces until the whole top was moving like this, as opposed to just where the bridge was. And,
okay.
A lot more experimentation on that one. I'm confident that they're not going to cave in. And actually, the first one hasn't caved in. It's just kind of sat where it went. But the idea is, and adding the pickup was sort of an afterthought, because I like to play it acoustic, the one at home, and the pickup just sort of, I guess, brought out the it gave it more mojo.
Hmm.
And I think also it sort of fits the style of that guitar really
Hmm.
well. As far as like a blues and ragtimey
Hmm.
guitar, you want a single coil pickup on one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a cool idea. And I feel like yeah, kind of going back to like the singer-songwriters like Gillian Welch or Gregory Alan Isakov, like that would be perfect for somebody who plays like
Yeah,
with a singer-songwriter like that, kind of that Americana style, but like a little bit more ethereal and out there, like just like perfect
exactly.
instrument for that.
Yeah, that's the hope, anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the main guitar that you like to play at home now.
Yeah, although I don't have one of my recent guitars. I have my second guitar, which I
Hmm.
built at Sergei's, and it sounds good, but it's not anything like the ones I'm building now.
Hmm.
So my most recent guitar is that Ember guitar.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would be reaching for it if I had, a new one of my parlors
Hmm.
there, um, because I've fallen in love with the newest parlors that I really like what I'm getting, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah, they sounded amazing. How much of it do you find yourself doing mostly like commissions for specific customers, or do you work with any other shops like ours?
Um, Up until COVID, it was all um almost entirely custom orders.
Hmm.
And from the get-go, I had a waiting list, which really was amazing for me because
Yeah.
I could just work away. Um, when COVID hit, I think I was affected a little bit differently than a lot of guitar makers. My waiting list dried up, um, which it was kind of a blessing in disguise because it gave me the opportunity to send guitars to you guys,
Hmm.
which I guess exposed me to the high end guitar market because I was up until that point, I feel like I was building a lot of guitars for musicians and music lovers from around like Canada or Ontario. Um, but the high end guitar market, I hadn't really had much exposure in there.
Hmm.
Um, the last guitar show, um, actually, I've been to a few guitar shows, but the last big guitar show I went to was in 2016. No, anyways, I've done a handful of shows, but not anything too consistent. But yeah, the right now, I'm mainly building my own guitars the way I want them, and then sending them off or putting them up for sale, kind of thing.
Hmm.
But I haven't worked with any other shops. I haven't had the ability to, I guess. Um, but working with TNEG has been awesome because it allows you guys to do your job, which you do really well, and then I can do what I love, which is the crafting of the guitars.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I guess marketing myself has never been super enjoyable to me. I guess I like to stay humble, which doesn't work so well when you're trying to market your own
Yeah,
work.
you have to do that self-promoting thing. But I mean, you do a
Yeah.
great job with your presentation of what you do, like with your Instagram and your website and everything. But I understand it's tough to talk about yourself.
Yeah, I don't want to look like you know, you I don't want you to have to bleep this out, but yeah, I don't want you to look like one of those. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and so yeah, that's great. I mean, it's like so it's interesting to hear that that yeah, I guess your guitars do sort of sit in that sort of price bracket where it does actually make them attainable to working musicians, which is awesome because yeah, so
Mhm.
much of the high-end market is a little bit unattainable.
Yeah, I actually I'll speak to that too because I just recently in the last couple of years totally changed my pricing and how I've priced my guitars because I've always struggled with that. I making a living making guitars for musicians is not easy,
Yeah.
but you don't want to price yourself out of that market because those are the people that are going to play the guitars and that's what you want.
Hmm.
So I changed my pricing so that a musician can save up and order a guitar, a base model guitar. It's still attainable. But then if you want extras, it costs quite a bit more. So like that's where I can make my living, I guess, is on the extras, and while keeping the guitars attainable for working musicians.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's such a valuable thing, because it's like an ecosystem in a way, and you want people who are collectors who want the really fancy stuff, because yeah, that kind of helps everybody in a way. It helps to make your guitars available to people who aren't necessarily going to buy those things, but maybe they'll buy them on the used market at some point. Makes it so that you can offer those base model options. So yeah, that's awesome. I think that makes a lot of sense that you do that.
Yeah, and if I had it my way, I would build guitars and give them away, but that
yeah, capitalism.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's interesting to hear that that you kind of had that flip during COVID, and yeah, so primarily before then it was all just like local buyers, like just folks in Canada for the most part.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
But now I think you've got at least one guitar in Japan. I think that we sent one of your Embers there. So
Yeah.
yes, now you're going worldwide.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, working with TNEG has been a huge boost for me. So
awesome.
Really appreciative of that. I try to minimize the custom orders that I do, just because I find them, I guess, creatively restrictive. And in a way, I guess, some custom orders are a great opportunity to be creative, but they can take a lot more time. And I've had a couple of headaches with clients. It's inevitable. And yeah, I guess I just love building what excites me at the time. So if it stays that way, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. That's definitely the ideal situation.
Yeah.
So you don't just make guitars, you kind of have like a woodworking background in general. And did you build your cabin?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was I guess a dream of mine of building this off-grid tiny house. We don't really call it a tiny house because it's a bit bigger than a tiny house. We call it a little house. But yeah, it was the whole design process. I wanted to make it passive solar. So on a winter day, if it's minus 30 degrees Celsius outside, it's like 30 degrees Celsius inside without any other heat source other than the sun. So that idea also just I don't know, the idea of creating it myself was it was always an interest of mine. Maybe that's part of the TreeHouse building idea there is similar. But yeah, otherwise before that I worked for my father-in-law as a contractor. So I did a lot of contracting, everything from foundations to roofs. And I think that in a funny way, I learned a lot. I apply a lot of that to my guitar making. I've always, I guess, had an engineering sort of mindset. Legos, when I was little, I'd play with Legos so much. But yeah, the engineering, I was really good in math subjects in school, and a bit of a nerd with that kind of stuff. And that all seems to apply really well with guitar making. Yeah, and I think I actually approach guitar making I think in a bit of a different way than most guitar makers do, in terms of mindset, because I see the guitar, what happens in the guitar when you're playing it, as physical movement, as inertia, and I'm really focused on what's happening to the top when the bridge is being pulled. It's actually being twisted. A lot of bracing patterns don't really make sense because the bridge is is actually pushing down in front of the bridge and pulling up behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of complex forces happening there. And I like to think of it as physical movement. So not like tap tuning things and stuff, but actual physical movement, measuring deflections and stuff, and designing bracing patterns that allow physical movement in certain places and restrict physical movement in other places. Mm-hmm. And then putting mass in places where you want inertia to sort of like stop or get bounced back, and then removing mass from areas that you want to have more inertia. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess that's sort of the way I've evolved my guitars is with that mindset. And I think it's worked well. Guitars keep getting better, so hopefully that keeps happening.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome. So with your bracing, does it look like kind of a standard X type of pattern, or do you? Yeah, I'm just curious. Now I want to go grab a mirror and look inside the OM.
It's a Martin X style bracing for the most part. There's the X there. And then for the finger braces, I use flat, skinny braces. So like, depending on the model, usually it's 3 on either side, flat, narrow braces, because I don't want rigidity there. I want crack prevention mainly to support that area. And then until the last 2 guitars, I tried a different bracing, which really, I guess, enhances the activity that's happening in the lower bout, below where the tone bars would be on a Martin style bracing. So it's actually almost like a falcate bracing in the lower bout, which actually is activated by the torque that's happening on the bridge. So it's kind of hard to explain without pictures, but for the most part, the top above the X is fairly similar. There's a reinforcement patch around the sound hole, which I think it's smart. That's what I learned from Sergei. And then for that brace that goes under the fingerboard, I use a big heavy mahogany brace because I think it makes sense. Heavy mahogany to stop the vibrations from, or like the inertia at that spot, and also to hold the guitar shape. Otherwise the Ember bracing is totally different. It's I actually call it my Phoenix bracing because it's after designing the bracing pattern, I noticed that there's this bird shape in it. So this has but I call it my Phoenix bracing, and I think it makes a lot of sense. It allows me to get every part of the top active. But yeah, that's obviously very different because there's no twisting of the top happening. It's just all downward force.
Right. That makes sense. Well, I guess we're kind of coming up close to the end of the hour, so I'll wrap up with the last few questions. So do you still actively play and like go on tour, right?
Yeah, it's been quiet since COVID. And my siblings have kind of moved away. So the family band stuff happens less regularly. But we play for dances quite often, or like fairly regularly for with the nonprofit organization. Or I guess it's a charity now. It's not. Anyways, and with my friend in BC, we've gone on tour a few times. Larissa Scriven is her name. She's a great singer-songwriter. And we've toured as Wildwood Soul before. We have an album on Spotify.
I was just going to ask if you got any recordings up.
Super popular, but like maybe, I don't know, like 30 listens a month. It's that kind of music is sort of my my favorite. It's more it gets me in the feels.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I'm definitely gonna have to go check it out.
Yeah, Wildwood Soul. And then my family band is the O'Shraves. But I think that on YouTube, I think the newest video on either of our groups is like 6 years old or something. Not really anything recent there.
Yeah,
But
gotcha.
yeah.
Well, what's next? Are you going to go to any of the guitar shows in the next year or so?
I actually not this year. I turned down the invitations back when COVID was still a thing.
Mhm.
Well, I guess it still is, but so unfortunately not this year, but it'll allow me to focus on building and stuff.
Yeah.
And then next year I'd like to I've been really wanting to go to Woodstock. That's just keeps getting pushed off.
Mhm.
And then I don't know. I had a lot of fun at La Connor. I'll probably do the Montreal show in, I think it's April, the Festival Sonore,
Okay.
which is always fun too. It's a little bit more low key, but a lot of great guitar makers in Montreal. So
Yeah, yeah.
lots of people to visit and great bagels.
Oh, really? I didn't know that
Oh
about
yeah,
Montreal.
they're known for the Saint Viateur bagels. They're
Oh.
very famous, I guess. They're really white and really tasty. I don't know.
How do they stack against New York bagels?
Oh, I don't know.
Now
I don't know.
I've got a question. I've got a
Uh-huh.
perspective.
Hey Google.
Got to get back up north and do a bagel tasting tour.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. It was so nice chatting with you and learning more about your background and getting to know what your music is so we can go check it out. So I'll be sure to link that in the description so that people can check you out too. But yeah, thanks for doing this. And yeah, well, I never know how to wrap things up.
Well, I'll thank you for having me on, and also Teeneg for representing me, because it's been a huge boost, like I said, and I I really appreciate all the work you guys do. You, Lindsay, you do a lot of work. I really appreciate it, and I'm just proud to be represented amongst all my other guitar making friends who are putting out amazing work, and yeah, thanks to you.
Yeah, well, we are so proud to have you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Talking Guitar. The guitar you heard at the beginning, played by yours truly, is the OMZ in Honduran Rosewood and Moon Spruce. And the one you hear now is the Ember series model that we still have, played by Seth Plemons. Both of these are available on our site. At the break, we heard a previously sold TreeHouse Parlor, played by the wonderful Nashville guitarist Lance Allen. To learn more about Zach and all of our wonderful builders, come visit us at thenorthamericanguitar.com. Until next time.